For the past couple of weeks, I've been playing Europa Universalis 5, and in today's video, I'm going to be telling you about 3 specific campaigns during this time that I consider to be full campaigns, my experience with these countries, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy, and how the game generally differs from the patch we got back in May, which was a work-in-progress build. This is a work-in-progress build as well, what differs, and everything else. The 3 campaigns that I'm going to be showcasing today are first, Serbia. The reason I played them again was because I played them quite a lot back in May, and I wanted to see how things are different. Then the second one is Castile, because I wanted to play a big and powerful and rich country, and then finally it's going to be Milan, because I wanted to play a country specifically in the region of Italy, which is the most developed and richest region in the world for the first 100 years of the game. So, without further ado, let's jump in, and I'll give you my little mini guides on Serbia, Castile, and Milan. Alright, here we aren't in Europa Universalis 4. Obviously, I'm not allowed to show you guys anything about the game, even though I do have access. I was considering, pulling up screenshots and drawing on the map and stuff like that, like Playmaker did, but apparently, I've been told that's a little too close to skirting the line, so you guys can open up the maps from Tinto Talks on your other monitor or whatever while I yap on about these countries. And of course, just a quick reminder, if you guys do want to pre-order EU5 for yourself, you can use the link in the description and in the pinned comment, or use code TheRedHawk on Paradox Interactive's website. You get a Steam key, I get a little cut of that, and it would help support the channel massively, so thank you for that. So yeah, like I just said in the intro, man, the campaigns we're going to be talking about are Serbia, Castile, and Milan. I think first we're going to be jumping in at Serbia because I do think it's such a fun nation, very flavorful, and honestly probably the most powerful nation in the Balkans, at least until we figure out what the meta is for the Byzantine Empire, because listen, the AI seems to be able to play them, so why can't I? Okay, so let me tell you about my experience in my full campaign as Serbia. So like I said, the reason I chose to play Serbia, man, is because I played them quite a lot back in May, and I wanted to play them on this, version of the game that we have right now to see how things differ. It is a pretty powerful country right at the start. You already know how it looks like. They got a pretty powerful ruler as well, 81, 77, 90, and he's pretty young. 60% of your population is primary culture, 90% of your population is primary religion, and it is quite a flavorful nation, man. It has 17 unique country bonuses going for it, which is more than anyone in Italy except for Venice. It's more than Bohemia, more than Austria, or I don't think it's more than Austria, but more than Poland, more than Sweden, in fact. So it is quite a flavorful nation, the same as Hungary, almost the same as Castile. So it has quite a lot of things going for it. So the first thing I'm going to mention about it is the country bonuses. So there are a couple of unique advances for it in the age of what you call it, in the first stage that it starts off with, which is it allows you to have the unique Serbian Hussars regiment, which is actually a little more powerful, than regular cavalry. And then, of course, it gives you plus 10% cavalry power, which is also, like a cav combat ability. And then you have Serbian mining as well, which gives you minus 10% expand mining cost, which is really good because Serbia, I think, as far as I'm aware, they are able to make a lot of money from gold and silver and stuff like that. And there are a bunch of silver provinces in Serbia, so that is really good for them as well. Then over in the next age, which starts, well, just a couple of years after the game starts, we have, a plus 10% speed of integration, which is obviously super powerful for expanding and stuff like that, right? Since expansion is pretty slow in EU5 at the start of the game. Then we have plus 5% cabinet efficiency, which, of course, if you're already using the cabinet thing for integration, speeds it up even more. So lots of conquest-focused things for Serbia in the second age. And then we have plus 10% reinforcement speed, obviously even more buffs to the army. Then in the third age, we have fort maintenance minus 20%, and this is really good, and I'm gonna go on into this a little bit more into detail soon, but Serbia really is like meant to be played defensively. So, it's kind of harder to figure out what nations are meant to do what in EU5 compared to EU4 because you can't see, the national ideas at a glance, but Serbia really has a lot of defensive things going for it, so you are meant to play these guys defensively. Another thing in this age is plus a 0.1 monthly diplomat, so that's good for like vassals and stuff like that. Then in the fourth age, which is what you call the Age of Reformation, We got some clergy loyalty and plus 0.2 monthly religious influence, which is actually really good, and I'll get into why soon. Then in the 5th age, which is the age of absolutism, we got plus 10% army morale, plus 1 diplomatic capacity, and then in the final age, some cultural influence and infantry power. So a lot of army and expansion-based things here for Serbia and their unique advances, which is really good. And obviously, there's a bunch more if you're Orthodox, if you're just Christian, if you're a monarchy, blah, blah, blah. But we're not going to get into that. And a lot of things Serbia has going for it as well is events. When you start up a game as Serbia, man, generally the first thing you want to do if you're looking at, maps of the Balkans on your other monitor or your phone or whatever, is you want to go ahead and fight Bosnia, because Bosnia, a weak nation, it's easy pickings, and if you don't fight them, Hungary will, and they will take a lot from them, so you want to grab your share of land when fighting, Bosnia. Because you have to know CB these guys, you have to know CB Bosnia, you can't just wait to make a CB on them, or, you can build a spy network and then do a CB, I think. I'm not sure, I can't remember right now, but by the time you do that, or by the time you wait for your parliament to be able to declare on Bosnia, Hungary already will. So you really do want to know CB Bosnia just to be able to take the most. Now, with no CBing them, they aren't full annexable, they aren't full vassalizable or anything like that. So, you generally, and when I say you, that's why I meant, expanding it in a mini guide fashion, like I'm telling you guys what to do. But you are generally going to take about 2/3 of Bosnia, and that little bit that's going to be left over, Croatia or Hungary usually ends up taking it over, so it's not really a big deal. And then, of course, we're going to get right into how you integrate, how you core provinces, going off of mechanics that are in EU4. Basically, the meta right now is, and I think that's going to remain, a fact for the foreseeable future, in these early ages, man, the first 100-ish years, you're really going to rely more on vassals to be able to integrate the provinces that you conquer properly, because using the cabinet action, sure, it works, but so few nations, almost everyone has 2 cabinet slots, so it's slow. You conquer like 5 different provinces. What are you going to do? Core 2 for 40 years. After those 2 are done, integrate 2 more for 40 more years, and then do the other one. It's too slow, so the general meta is to be releasing subjects. Now, I've seen a lot of questions on subjects on the EU5 subreddit as well, and you can go and create subjects after you've taken that land. So let's say we as Serbia just conquered 2/3 of Bosnia. That is owned by us directly, currently. But what you generally want to do right here, and what I generally like to do, is release custom subjects. So you can make custom subjects, which are either vassals or fiefdoms or fiefdoms, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to call them fiefdoms. Some nations can do fiefdoms right at the start. Some can't. It depends. Serbia can, for example. And fiefdoms are better because you don't have to wait. It's generally faster to integrate them than vassals, but vassals aren't bad. So if you can't do fiefdoms, it's not a big deal. You're just going to do vassals. And the way you do these custom subjects is one of these guys pops out from one province if you have the full province, right? So let's say, for example, Bosnia, they have about 4 full provinces. You're going to take 3 of them. And because you have half of the other one, you really don't want to release a subject there. And for example, when I took this from Bosnia, I released in 2 of their provinces custom subjects. So 1 province vassal, 1 province vassal, and then the, half or full of the 3rd province that I got from them, that is one that I was integrating with my cabinet members. So that is generally how you want to do expansion, not just the Serbia, but it's pretty much any country within the first 100-ish years until you start getting those modifiers for integration and stuff like that, right? So in the meantime, while, this is integrating the 1 province that you took, you're improving relations with your custom subjects that you released from there. And by the way, you can do historical subjects as well. I'm going to get into that with Castile later. You can release a nation that was historically there, or the custom guys or provinces. You're improving relations with them after 10-ish years, just like in EU4, you annex those guys. You haven't been wasting a cabinet slot on integrating them, and it is faster to do that than to manually integrate the province, right? So that is generally the first thing you do as Bosnia, at least your first war. As for not wars, what you're doing during this time is you've gotten the event, the ambitions of the, king of Serbia or whatever, which gives you claims on a bunch of provinces that Byzantium owns, which are mainly in the area of Macedonia. So you get claims on Upper Macedonia, Lower Macedonia, Central Macedonia, and Halkidiki, where, Thessaloniki is located, which is a nice and important city that you want to grab very soon because there's almost no cities in the Balkans. Athens is one, Thessaloniki is the other, of course Constantinople is one, and then Bulgaria has their capital as a city, I think. Serbia does not have cities at the start. It's 90% rural. There are like 4 or 5 towns, which is your capital of Prizren. Now, while you've been fighting Bosnia, you've gotten that event, the ambitions of Tsar, blah, blah, blah. At this point, what I did as Serbia is I've allied Bulgaria and Wallachia because I thought I needed their help versus Byzantium, but you can literally just roll Byzantium and have the war wrap up in a month, because really the only thing you're going to be taking from Byzantium is the stuff that you got claims on, right? So, during this point, we've established our alliances with Bulgaria and Wallachia. We fought Bosnia, improving relations with subjects to annex them, and we're just spamming marketplaces and market villages and all of those things which increase, your market presence, market attraction, advantage, and stuff like that, because Serbia does not have its own market at the start. It is a part, mostly, it's actually split between 3 different markets. Mostly, it's in the Dubrovnik market, and the center of that market is in Dubrovnik, which is owned by Ragusa, of course. Ragusa is pretty hard to fight. The guarantees and the alliances are there, just like in EU4. Then, a bit of it is a part of the Constantinople market. Obviously, super far away. No way we're conquering Constantinople so early. And then another part of it is a part of Pest. We're not fighting Hungary right at the start, right? So we're split between 3 different markets. Trade absolutely sucks for us at the start. So while you're setting up the alliances, getting the claims on Byzantium from an event, and fighting Bosnia, you're just spamming marketplaces, man, so you can increase all of those trade things, because we are getting ready to create our own market, which we're going to do soon. So in the meantime, trade pretty weak at the start. Once you've wrapped up Bosnia, it is time to declare on Biz. In my experience, Biz and Bulgaria also ally each other quite at the start. Biz does like you. As Serbia, sometimes it will offer you an alliance. You, of course, aren't going to take that. But by the time we've wrapped up Bosnia and been building marketplaces, Bulgaria and Byzantium usually end up breaking that alliance. So Biz is super weak. They've got Epirus as a subject, of course, and then they ally Trebizond, which is what happens in 90% of the games. Once you've wrapped up Bosnia, chill for a year or 2, boom, you're going in against Byzantium immediately. We fight Byzantium. It's a super easy war. You don't really have to even siege any forts to take the stuff, because there aren't any forts in the stuff that you want to take. And boom, you nab the entire area of Macedonia from them, and maybe you can take a location or 2 or something like that in the area of Albania, because we are going to be going for Albania later soon. And so at this point, not even 10 years have passed in the game. You've already taken out 2/3 of Bosnia, and you've taken out a big chunk of Byzantium and taken their, their second biggest city, which is vital for us. Now, obviously, this is wrong culture to us, right? And to fully integrate something, basically to make it a core like it is in EU5, and you don't even really want to or need to do this in EU5, but if you do want to, you either have to accept that culture, or you need to convert it to your own primary culture, or an accepted one, right? You can convert to a different culture than yours. And because Greek is going to be, very hard to accept, because the way you can accept a culture, if you have a little bit of it, you need that culture to have a positive opinion of you, right? But because we just fought a Greek country, a primary culture Greek country, all other Greek countries, including Byzantium, they hate us. So we can't accept Greek because we don't have a positive opinion of Greek. Greek doesn't have a positive opinion of Serbian, and it's very, very tricky to accept Greek. So that's why you generally, once again, just like we did with Bosnia, you want to create subjects here, either in all provinces you took from Byzantium and then annex them, or in most provinces and just integrate some tiny little bit here and there. And like that, we're going to get those provinces in our country quicker. Then conversion of those provinces is going to be extremely tough as well to your own culture if you want to fully integrate them, because like I said, Greek will hate us. So there is some shenanigans you have to do with that. Wait till later ages. Now these provinces, they are going to be integrated, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be, let's say, 100% cord like it would be in EU4. It's going to be 75% or something like that, right? So at this point, you've wrapped up your 2 starting wars as Serbia. And at this point, you are going to want to chill because aggressive expansion, or I should say antagonism, is going to be pretty high. You can get coalitions sometimes. I have gotten coalitioned, but the coalitions are too small and they never declared. And even if they do, it's not a problem. You just pay them and they go away. So I hope that is something that gets changed until the release build, because it's really easy to get rid of coalitions or to just peace out in those wars, right? So yeah, that is your like first 10 years of Serbia. Then after you've done your starting wars, you are going to want to chill for quite a while, like I said, because, you know, you're integrating these provinces, improving relations with vassals, waiting for antagonism to tick down, and you're going to be focusing on the economy. So during this point, you're still spamming marketplaces, and at this point, you're also after you've done Byzantium and taking all of those things from them, you get another very, very awesome event, and that is that even though Serbia starts off as a kingdom, from an event, we get to become an empire. Now, the requirements to, actually become an empire via non-event are pretty high. So the fact that Serbia can become an empire just from taking one, area or 3 provinces from Byzantium is absolutely crazy. Becoming an empire, among other things, the most important thing is it gives you another cabinet slot. So just 10 years into the game, as Serbia, you have 3 cabinet slots, which is absolutely vital. Florence has 3 at the start, and the Ottomans can have 4. So you're already a part of the top dogs with cabinet slots over here. And there are a couple of more events related to, the empire-ness of Serbia that we'll get to later. But once you've done that, you're an empire. Obviously, you're focusing on the economy now, so you're still building marketplaces. After you've built up a lot of marketplaces, basically, and market villages and stuff like that, and all the available provinces, that is when you want to start saving up money to create your own market. And then once you got the money, you're going to create your own market, for example, in the province of Skopje, which is the largest or second largest town in Serbia right at the start. And the reason we're doing this is because soon there's an event that moves your capital to that province, right? Which is awesome. So instead of creating a market in our current capital, Prizren, we want to create it in our future capital. And that event happens 20-ish, 30-ish years into the game, right? So it's not, that long after you integrate Byzantium, right? So that's what happens right there. And once we have our own market, we're free from the clutches of the Dubrovnik, Constantinople, and Pest markets. And because we've got good relations with Wallachia and Bulgaria, I invited them into that market as well. So now suddenly the Skopje market is huge and we're making a lot more money coming in from trade. Now, at that point in the campaign, once I've done those 2 conquests and once I'm focusing on the market, I'm saying, okay, now we're not going to go to war. I'm examining some possibilities with Bulgaria, with Hungary and stuff like that. But I'm like, okay, now let's chill, focus on the economy. So at this point, I'm focusing on building out roads from my future capital of Skopje, leading to all of the different towns, everywhere we have weak control, to the capitals of my current vassals, to Thessaloniki. So later we can get control. Obviously, control is one of the most vital mechanics in EU5. It's like autonomy in EU4, but way more important. Everywhere you have low control, you don't gain anything. So it's not even like you have that province, man. And by the end of the game, provinces, this is the craziest thing. I absolutely love this mechanic. The lower control a province or a location has in the nation that you're fighting, for example, let's say as Serbia, we're fighting, Bulgaria, and their easternmost provinces are 0 control. For us, those provinces are free by the end of the game. I'm talking Age of Revolutions. But the lower control your opponent has on a province or a location, the cheaper it is for you to take it, right? So you don't want to have low control provinces yourself in case you end up in a war. It's going to be free for the opponent to take those provinces. No war score. No war score. It's absolutely crazy. Not in 1337. I'm talking 1750s for this stuff, right? But still, there are modifiers for this at the start as well. The way I'm doing and the way you're gonna want to do increasing control here is you build out roads from your capital. It's like, like tentacles, like a spider web spreading from your capital to all your vital cities, to places where, the towns, mainly urban locations, far away locations. Obviously, it depends on how much money you have. And roads are harder to build via mountains. And there's a lot of mountains in the Balkans. So you're going to have low control anyway. So we do want to get control under control. So at this point, we're building out roads. We're putting down bridges, and bridges can only be built when there's roads. Bridge is a building, it helps you with that as well. We're building bailiffs for proximity, and proximity is another modifier that relates to control based on how close or far away something is to your capital. So we're focusing on that. We're focusing on centralizing at this point, bringing everything closer to grow around our future capital of Skopje. So that's what we're doing. We're putting down those buildings, and at this point, obviously, the institutions have spawned. We are in the second age at this point, which is the age of Renaissance, and we desperately, as Serbia, want to get the banking, Renaissance, and professional armies, and of course the fourth tree you unlock, which is either admin, diplo, or mill. As Serbia, I recommend mill because we are going to be mill maxing over here. So you're in the second age, you're unlocking, you're teching down your mill tree that you've unlocked because we still don't got professional armies, Renaissance, or banking, and because we're in Eastern Europe specifically, we're going to be waiting quite a while for those things to spread. So it's good that we have that extra mission tree so we can, do tech research while we're waiting for that to spread. But luckily, it's not going to be that far off since now, with our new market of Skopje, we are trading with the Italian markets, which are relatively close by, so it's not going to be that long. It's going to be longer, of course, than anyone in Western Europe, but it's not going to be that long. So at this point, we're working on the economy, putting down more buildings and stuff like that, and generally trying to centralize, even more working on centralization while we're waiting to declare our next wars. After this point, a couple of decades have passed. We've annexed some of the subjects that we released in Bosnia. We've integrated that extra province. We've annexed the subjects that we got in Greece. We've integrated that extra province, and we're looking pretty big. Antagonism has gone down. We're fairly centralized. The core of our country, everything that's like Serbian culture and that's close to our capital is very high control. Everything that's like Bosnian and Greek, lower control, but still really good because Thessaloniki is pretty close to your, new capital of Skopje at this point. So controlling Thessaloniki, your only city at this point, is pretty good. And of course, if you do get up the money, what I would do and what I did actually is I leveled up Skopje from a town to a city. So now we got 2 cities as well, more possibilities for buildings and stuff like that. Population is growing over there, and control is decent around Thessaloniki in a lot of the Greek culture provinces as well, which, keep in mind, at this point, it's impossible for me to convert them to Serbian just because, those provinces are like 1% Serbian, right? So the lower culture in a province is of the culture you want to convert it to, the harder it is to convert them, right? If, for example, let's say you got a province 70% Serbian, you're going to have it up to 90% in just a couple of years, right? But if it's 1% Serbian, that's not going to budge, right? And we can't even accept Greek because all of the Greek guys hate us. So, we're having a little bit of trouble with that. But at this point, I'm like, okay, let's fight the guys that are over in Albania. If you still got the map open on your other monitor or something like that, or if you're looking at it on your phone, you will notice that there are like 4 or 5 countries located in Albania. This is Albania itself, and the other guys are vassals of Albania, I think. And then in turn, Albania is a vassal of Naples, right? So to fight anyone here, we're fighting Naples. However, what happened in my game specifically was Sicily took over those provinces, or not Sicily directly. Sicily actually took the province of Albania, where Albania is, not the province, where Albania, the country, is. I think it's in Durrës or something like that. And then those other guys, which were Albanian vassals, became Sicilian vassals. And Sicily also has a couple of vassals down near Athens and stuff like that. But I'm like, okay, no big deal. Sicily, not difficult to fight. Let me call in Bulgaria into this so they can help me. I declare on Sicily. I siege down all of the provinces in Albania. Bulgaria goes to Sicily, moves their guys. I'm like, hey, they're sieging the capital, Palermo or Catania, whatever it is. Great. We're going to have war score in no time. Bulgaria, separate pieces, and takes little, you know how Sicily is like this? They take the middle of the island of Sicily, and they separate piece. So now I'm left with puny war score. Bulgaria is left with border gore, and I'm going to go into the first thing in this video that I actually don't like about Europa Universalis 5 is about how border gory it is, man. The Ottomans will end up fighting Venice, for example, right? And you'd expect them to take like Naxos or stuff like that, like they do in EU4 or Crete. No, they go and take Venice and Istria. Bulgaria, just helping me out in this war versus Sicily, took Sicily. I've seen the Golden Horde own Thessaloniki, right? I've seen, Serbia, when me not playing as them, own stuff in Italy. The AI is very border gory with what it takes, and that is something that I do not like. It's so far away from them. it's going to be so difficult for them to establish control. It's going to be so difficult for them to hold it down. Why do they take such border gory provinces? I don't get it. This also might stem from the fact that Bulgaria pissed me off in this war, but yeah, that's something I don't like. Either way, then I continued along, beat up Sicily, took those provinces in Albania. Since it's only one province, I decided to not do a vassal. At this point, I had 4 cabinet slots, because at that point I had which was it banking, or was it actually it's the Renaissance. At that point I had the Renaissance, and the third advance in one of the third advances that can be in the Age of Renaissance is a 4th cabinet seat. Right? So, well, for Serbia, for a lot of nations, it'll be the 3rd cabinet seat, but because we're an empire, that's our 4th cabinet seat. So with these other guys, I'm culture converting, I'm increasing control, doing stuff like that. So I got a free guy. I'm like, okay, let's integrate Albania, blah, blah, blah. So at that point, we're looking pretty good. We fought Bosnia, we fought Biz, we fought Albania. It's been, 60-ish years. Like I said, I was pretty slow with conquest because I was focusing a lot on the building stuff as well. And listen, it's no rush. So we're looking pretty good. Okay, now I'm planning out my next conquest. So, do we go into Croatia, into Venice? Nah, I feel like I'm not too powerful for that. Our navy isn't that good because I wasn't focusing on navy at all. Who can we fight? Of course, Byzantium. They're still alive in Thrace, and they still got their subject of Epirus, so we can take a lot from northern Greece right there from them, and we could even potentially go for Constantinople, which would be amazing. Maybe there's even more events for Constantinople for Serbia. I don't know. While I'm thinking that, I'm like, okay, let's chill a little bit more. We just fought Albania. I'm going to declare on Biz in like 20 years, right? And keep in mind, the way I play is I'm on speed 5 all the time, right? You could do all of what I just did in about 40 years, 30 years, maybe even less. For me, it's been 50 or 60 years because I've been working on other stuff and learning the game too. At that point, everything is looking good. We're rich. Our market is expanding, increasing control everywhere, converting stuff to Orthodox that isn't. There's a couple of there's this little, type of Christianity in Bosnia that I was converting as well. So, religious converting, even though it's really slow before the age of, Reformation or whatever, converting culture, increasing control, building buildings, building up the army as well. At this point, I'm about to get professional army, so I'm about to spam, or actually I did have professional armies, so I'm spamming armories. We've got about, 12, 13,000 max manpower. I'm building up a real army, 3 or 4K right here. So everything, working on the economy and getting the army ready to fight Biz. It wasn't going to be that hard, but I'm just taking it slow. And at this point, my ally, Wallachia, by the way, my only ally at this point, I've ditched Bulgaria because I want to fight them as well. And if you're wondering why I don't fight Bulgaria early, is because they're really annoying to fight. I think Bulgaria has 11 or 12 forts at the start of the game. Do you know how hard and how annoying it is to get through 11 or 12 forts with levies? Like, you get the cannon pretty soon in the, once you get professional armies, so it's not that bad. You'll be sieging stuff relatively soon. But Bosnia doesn't have forts, and Byzantium doesn't have forts where we wanted to take the provinces. So the only thing we've sieged by this point is, the fort in Durrës when we fought Sicily, right? So that's why we're not fighting like Bulgaria or Hungary or anything like that. We don't want to waste our levies sieging while everyone else sieges us, right? So I'm getting ready for all of that. Wallachia, in all their geniuses, decides to declare on Hungary and call just me in. So it's me and Wallachia, and maybe they've thought because I have professional armies I'm strong. However, Hungary is allied to Heilig, which is, I don't know if you say it like that, or Heilich maybe, which is guys that are where Galicia Volhynia is in EU4, and Poland. Hungary can summon mega levies, so can Poland, and Heilich or Heilig, they're not that bad either. So I'm like, okay, Wallachia. And the thing is, I'm going to mention here another thing I don't like. You auto-accept call to arms sometimes. Sometimes you auto-accept call to arms in offensive wars. That is due to the favor thing and how things work like that. That is something I really don't like. So I'm like, okay, that's why I ditched the alliance with Bulgaria. It's because they were calling me into wars. I'm like, okay, I'm not helping these guys out anymore. They were fighting like the Golden Horde. They won. Yeah, they won, by the way, but I'm like, I don't want to help anymore. So Wallachia declares on Hungary, Poland, Heilig, all of those guys. They spawn 50k troops, 60k troops out of nowhere. Meanwhile, we've got like 20-something K combined. I go to siege Belgrade. I'm like, nice, we can get Belgrade. And Hungary just rolls me. And I'm like, okay, obviously I suck at EU5. Obviously I would. I still got like less than 200 hours in it. And I'm like, well, I'm done. And that's where I ended that campaign, man. I do consider it a full campaign because, you know, I played through it. I didn't just be like, okay, I'm ending this and not playing it anymore. So we got through about 70 or 80 years here as Serbia. Everything was going well. My sort of mini goal was to play 100-ish years, you know, just to get the hang of things. But I canceled it after Wallachia did that declaration on Hungary. So, yeah, there's my little... you know, just a verbal explanation of my little playthrough as Serbia, one of the bigger ones, or well, not one of the bigger ones. I've played longer as other nations that I'm not going to mention. I played longer as Hungary, but I do think the Serbia one was more interesting, so that's why I decided to include it. So, yeah, that's Serbia in EU5 in my experience. Very fun nation to play. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to enjoy it, especially for, you know, the Empire event that it has at the start. Like I said, so many unique advances. You get to move your capital for free. You get claims very early, which is super rare, and you become an empire for free. So lots of things going for Serbia. Lots of advances, more flavorful than most countries in Europe, and that's it for them. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about Castile. Alright, next up I'm going to talk about Castile. Now, like I said in the intro, the reason I decided to play these guys and I decided to include them in this little explanation I'm doing for you guys is that they start off as a big and powerful and rich country that you can just get right into it as them. I would compare Castile in Europe, for example, to Hungary. And another reason I also chose Castile was because of my playthrough as Hungary. Now, as Hungary, I'm going to mention them a little bit at the right here because of the Anjou dynasty, which is present, you know, in like Provence and Naples and Hungary and stuff like that. You immediately sort of as Hungary kind of get into the union mechanics. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about personal unions here too. They work very differently, obviously, in EU5, as I'm sure many of you know by now. In EU4, they were great from an arcadey and game perspective, and I do love them quite a lot in EU4 as well, but it was very simple, right? You just get a PU over someone, and you got a big vassal basically that you pretty much just drag around everywhere. They bring in their huge armies, they'll help you out in wars. Sure, you don't make money off of them, and then after 50 years have passed, you integrate them if you want to, or sometimes from an event and stuff like that. So I do love personal unions in EU4, and I think you know, that is, those are some of the most powerful things featured in missions in EU4, which of course we don't really exist in that sort of manner in EU5. Now, because as Hungary you gain access to the union mechanics quite early, you know, you're kind of in a union with Naples, with Provence and stuff like that. When I was playing Hungary, I was like, okay, how do we become the senior partner? After we become the senior partner, how do we integrate more? You know, there are various laws that you can pass and vote for in those unions that you can initiate debates on. But, you know, even though unions happen very frequently in EU5, nothing comes from them. As Hungary, I couldn't figure out, you know, there was no ability for me to like vote on certain laws to try and become a senior partner. You know, in the previous patch in May, when you get that union with Croatia and stuff like that, I was able to, you know, push votes for me to become the senior partner to get sort of control over Croatia, because it's weird the way it works in EU5. And don't get me wrong, the whole union mechanic is way better in EU5, right? It's a lot more realistic. It's just the same ruler at the end of the day, right? Everything else is the same. You can end up fighting a nation you're in a union with. Your union guy can have subjects of his own. He can be in a union with someone else too. Multiple countries can be in the same union. You can be in two different unions at once. So it is way better and there's a lot more potential. It's just it's a different type of mechanic altogether, man. You can't immediately look at it like you look at it in EU4, like, all right, gotcha, bitch. So now you're my lapdog. I'm gonna drag you around in my wars. I've just become more powerful. You know, like you PU freaking Muscovy as Georgia or whatever, right? Or Russia. So that's not the way it works in EU5. But the reason for that made me want to play Castile. Finally getting to Castile, because I think the gameplay for Castile in EU5 is gonna be extremely different compared to EU4. Just a reminder for EU4, you start off a game as Castile, vassalize Navarra, fight Granada, don't do anything with Portugal and Aragon because you know you're gonna get them as your junior partners later, right? Once you get Aragon, you force PU Naples as well, so you got Naples in there too, and then you unlock those missions, or at least you used to, to force PU Portugal. So now you got another lapdog over here colonizing for you. Aragon helps you form Spain. Naples helps you expand over into Italy. You fight Granada. You go into the Maghrebi guys. It's pretty simple. Then you start colonizing. In EU5 though, with the way unions work, unless you're really doing a role play or a Diplo type of campaign, and I don't even know how you get Aragon into a union as Castile, the time that's going to be spent to become the senior partner and then to integrate and then to pass all of these laws and then to go into this, to that. So many, hundreds of years will have passed where you can just eat up Aragon at the start. It's as simple as that. As Castile in EU5, you don't leave these guys alone. In EU4, you leave Portugal and Aragon alone because you get them kind of for free. You fight Navarra, Granada, go into the Maghrebi guys, go into Italy. In EU5, you're going to be fighting Navarra. You're going to be fighting Aragon. You're going to be fighting Andorra, Mallorca, Granada, Morocco, Portugal. You're going to be fighting every single one of these guys and taking over their land. At least that's how I feel it is. I may be wrong here. Like I said, I don't know yet how you maybe get these guys in unions and stuff like that, but it just seems more beneficial, man. You get it so early, and keep in mind, Iberia really isn't all that different in EU4, right? In EU5, there's 8 countries in Iberia, and that's because Andorra, Mallorca, and Morocco have land there, right? Andorra doesn't exist in EU4. Mallorca's been annexed by Aragon, so it doesn't exist. And that portion owned by Morocco in EU5 is owned by Granada in EU4, right? So 100 years, more than 100 years have passed to how we see Castile now, Iberia now in EU5, to how Iberia looks in EU4. And it's not all that different. So what are you going to do? You're not going to play Castile and let it still be different once you hit 1444, right? You got to go faster. So I jumped into a game as Castile. Like I said, they're super rich, super powerful at the start. The capital is up north in Valladolid, so you do have pretty low control in the south of the country. You could move it to Toledo. Actually, there's an event to move your capital to a bunch of different places. You can move it to Sevilla. That's pretty nice if you want to project more control over into the Maghreb, or maybe if you're going for New World stuff, obviously. I chose to keep it in Valladolid because my goal for this playthrough as Castile was, I'm rich and powerful at the start. How fast can I eat Iberia? That's what I wanted to do. No colonization, no nothing. So, started off a game as Castile. Pretty chill, pretty regular, building up marketplaces. We do have we are present in like 2 different markets as Castile at the start. Burgos, which is like the north half of Iberia, Sevilla, which is the south half, and then you have Barcelona, which is pretty much Aragon, right? So you got 2 different markets yourself already. Nice stuff with trade, building up more marketplaces still to be able to trade more, building roads right here, interconnecting all of our different, towns. I can't remember how many, Castile does have a couple of cities at the start. I think Valladolid and Toledo and Sevilla are for sure cities. Cordoba is actually one as well. And then you can actually conquer a couple of more cities, obviously, from Portugal. Lisbon is a city, from Granada, from Aragon and whatnot. But you do start off with cities already. So building roads out from Valladolid to Toledo, to Sevilla, to all of these other different towns so we can increase control. Good thing about Castile is as well, a lot of your country, 60% of it is Castilian. A lot of these other cultures already accepted or tolerated. Most, like 95% of it is already Catholic. And if you're fighting Portugal and Aragon, they're going to be Catholic as well. Really, the only issues you're going to run into is fighting Granada and Morocco down at the start. So, because Castile starts off with so much money, I've started putting down buildings. And as for the content, man, which I mentioned for Serbia, didn't mention it for them, there are a bunch of country bonuses. For example, in the first age, you already start off with this unlocked. You got a plus 10% migration speed and plus 0.1 monthly prosperity. Then you got the Reconquista, which gives you plus 15% morale of armies. It is pretty powerful. And the second age, you got the Castilian Navy for heavy ship power. And keep in mind, power is like combat ability in EU4. Plus 15%, let's say, heavy combat ability, plus 10 maritime presence, which is really good for control along your coastline. Then you got cultural tradition, plus 10%, which is sort of like, how difficult is it for other cultures to convert your culture? Kinda, stuff like that. And plus the 0.1 monthly prestige. And then in the third age, 0.05 monthly army tradition. And obviously in the Age of Discovery, plus 25% colonial range and monthly colonial migration, which is really where you're going to start colonizing Castile. In the 4th age, you got plus 10% tax efficiency, which is really powerful. Then you got navy morale and disembark speed. 5th age, tolerance of the true faith and monthly literacy. 6th age, you got plus 20% food production, which is super powerful, and a plus 10% production efficiency. And then, another one in the 3rd age right here, actually, which gives us a unique regiment, which is a unique type of cavalry. There is also unique 4 unique government reforms for nobles power and tax efficiency. Then you got crown power plus 25%, which is extremely powerful. More crown power. They're basically all curtailing the estates. All of these government reforms, the unique government reforms that Castile has, which you don't start off with, some you unlock, they're all for curtailing the estates. There's also a unique law you can do as Castile, a unique building type, which is, I think, more for trade and stuff like that. And then you have a couple of unique estate privileges as well. So lots of unique things going for Castile. Either way, after saying all of that and after setting up my nation with control and stuff like that, I was using I was building up a CB on Granada or waiting for the parliament. I don't remember. And at that point, I did decide to ally Portugal. Why not? I was like, let's ally Portugal, fight Aragon. Then once I eat up Aragon, I'll fight Portugal, you know? But at that point, Portugal decides to declare on Granada first. So at that point, I declined their call to arms, declare on Granada myself. I rush Granada, get all of Granada first. They're allied to Morocco too. Luckily, it's not a problem because Gibraltar and Ceuta is no longer a crossing in EU5. You actually have to ferry troops between Iberia and the Maghreb to move them around. So Portugal sieges down that little bit of Morocco that they have in Iberia. I siege down Granada. This is 2 separate wars, by the way. I full annex Granada. Portugal pieces out and takes that little bit of Moroccan land in Iberia. And I'm like, frick. Okay. So no longer allied to Portugal. I'm like, okay, frick it. I'll fight Portugal first, then fight Aragon. Doesn't matter because Portugal is pretty weak at this point. They have no allies whatsoever. So what I do in Granada, I think Granada has like 2.5 provinces. Malaga is split between them and Morocco. So I pop out a custom subject in the easternmost province. I pop out a custom subject in Granada, the province of Granada itself, which is in the middle. And then I integrate using the cabinet half of the westernmost province, which I share with Portugal because I can't release a subject from there. I'm assuming that is because, I don't own the entire province myself. So that's cool. Granada down there is, and I was debating on releasing Granada itself too, but I was like, okay, maybe these custom subjects, they'll be my religion and stuff like that. So in the meantime, I'm working on improving relations and coring up that little bit from Morocco. Then I'm like, okay, that's good. Quick war, not wasting, I got a technically free cabinet slot, which I can move to integrating right away. Let's go into some wars. Navarra had a bunch of small allies and seemed annoying to fight. Aragon, seemed annoying to fight. So I'm like, okay, waiting for my 5-year truce to expire with Portugal. Truce with Portugal expires. I go in, right? Now, the problem here I had was I deleted a bunch of forts as Castile to make money. Castile has a ton of forts at the start, maybe almost 20. So I delete a bunch of forts because I didn't think I was going to be fighting Portugal this soon. I left, the ones that were mostly towards Aragon, but I deleted the ones that were mostly towards Portugal. And Portugal has a bunch of forts as well. And this is sort of where I fricked up because, like I mentioned in the Serbia thing, the reason I didn't fight Bulgaria is because of their forts. I completely forgot about that for Portugal, and I forgot that I deleted my own forts. So I'm going in against Portugal. They have a bunch of border forts. I siege them. Obviously, I have a ton of levies because Castile has such a big population. At this point, the Black Death hits, and I didn't mention it as Serbia, but it's just, you don't really even need to do anything, boys. It hits you. You lose about 1/3 of the population. That's just how the game is. I think I'm always going to play with it on. A lot of players might turn it off or change some settings. So Black Death, not really a problem. I'm fighting Portugal. They come in and carpet siege my land. I'm sieging their stuff over here. I get a couple of forts, come back, fight them, unsiege my stuff. They retreat to Lisbon. I come back in, siege forts. This war is a slog. It turns into a slog of my own making because I deleted my forts and I don't have cannons at this point. I don't think the professional armies have even spawned, let alone me getting professional armies, let alone me getting the cannon maker building, which allows you to make cannons. Slog with Portugal, by the way, declaring with claims, something in northern Portugal, or actually, no, I declared for the province in the south, the Algarve, so southern Portugal. I fight Portugal. Very long war. I do end up winning. I get up to around 70 or 80% war score. So I take about 4 provinces from them, right? 2 in the south, 2 in the north. So I basically squish Portugal like this. In 3 of those provinces, I release custom subjects. In one, I integrated myself using the cabinet member. Okay, that goes on. That's what I'm doing, waiting for truce with Portugal to expire again. No one's obviously mad because I just fought them in Granada. Oh, I also took, I also took that little bit that Portugal took from Morocco. That's what I did. I also took that bit, and since a cabinet guy was already integrating that province, that also is a part of that province, so I didn't need to, use two different guys. It's the same province, right? So that's what I'm doing. In the meantime, working on the economy still, building up, expanding control, which is vital, something you're doing at the start. So once again, roads, webbing out from the capital, bridges in places where you can build bridges where there's roads, putting down bailiffs in rural locations for proximity, spamming marketplaces still, doing all of these early game buildings that are vital. And of course, later you get the counting house as well for crown power. You do want to increase crown power. Speaking of that, you generally don't want to be below 25% crown power, even though you will be below 25% quite a bit in the first 20 or 30 years. You really don't want to take out loans at all, which is so difficult for me as a mega loan player in EU4. I'm pretty much always running with loans. Loans are absolutely horrible at the start of the game in EU5, man. They're 10% interest, so you pay so much interest. And get this, every single loan lowers your crown power by 2 or 3%, which is absolutely insane. So loans, only if they're absolutely necessary, only 1 to 3 at a time, boys, no matter who you're playing. That's what I'm going to say. Loans, horrible, until you can get some like economic stuff to reduce interest rate or blah, blah, blah and stuff like that. But yeah, you do not want to be taking out loans. So you're generally just waiting to gather up some money. It's not that difficult as Castile. These do start off with a lot of money. And once you spam those marketplaces, you can start building a lot more once you build, buildings for more producing more stuff. And by the way, regarding automation, man, I'm playing with production methods, trade, and RGO automated. That's the only thing I'm automating. So, because if you don't automate it, man, I don't want to be making trades every single month. I'm not playing a turn-based game here, right? So that's why I got those things automated. So I'm doing buildings myself and stuff like that, letting trade, production methods, and RGO, resource gathering operations being handled by the AI. And it is pretty good at all three of those things. At this point, still working on centralizing, coring stuff up, blah, 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 just chilling during peacetime, seeing what's going on in the rest of Europe, voting on some things that's going on in the Catholic Church, various laws and stuff like that, which are all beneficial to us. And we're just chilling, waiting for the truce with Portugal to expire. At this point, a couple of decades have passed. Institutions are spreading slowly. I am able to embrace them, but they're super expensive, so I just wait for them to spread more. Doing parliament stuff, you know what it is. Truce with Portugal expires. I fight them again, take more land. Once again, it's the same deal. I release 2 or 3 vassals, custom vassals, integrate one myself. So that's how you generally do the wars. And this is just going to be a quick run through because I'm doing the expansion game as Castile, right? Like I said, not even planning to play till the Age of Discovery. I beat Portugal's ass, and the reason I'm sort of just hyper focusing on Portugal at this point, not dealing with Aragon is having a bunch of civil wars during this point, right? And sure, you can exploit this by declaring on the pretenders and taking the part of the land that they control, but I also was pretty interested in how that plays out. So I was just looking at Aragon, like seeing, okay, so now the pretenders control this much land. Okay, Aragon is pushing back. Are they going to win? What's happening? Is France, for example, going to take advantage of this, push into Aragon? Is Navarra going to do something? Because there was some land over there next to them that they could take. So I'm just examining the situation with Aragon, hyper-focusing on Portugal myself. And regarding the stuff that we took from Granada earlier, man, the culture over there, in the provinces, it's all Andalusi. It's extremely hard to convert to Castilian. But because the only Andalusi nation that existed, we fought. Those guys hate us, so we can't even accept that culture. So we have a little bit of trickiness going on down there in getting max control, or not max control. You can't get 100 control down there, right? At least not this early, but maximizing control. We're having a little bit of trouble maximizing control because of the culture and the religion. But via buildings, via roads and stuff like that, we are able to keep a pretty good handle on it, and we aren't having issues with rebellions, right? And also for rebellions, the only reason you're going to get pops rebelling, man, is if you expand too fast, too aggressively and stuff like that. you know, once you understand how the game works, you're not gonna be getting revolts and rebels and stuff like that, right? In the meantime, dealing with a few coup attempts and stuff like that, always fun, always flavorful to assassinate members of your court and stuff like that, which is cool. I like that quite a lot. And yeah, we're just dealing with that, keeping an eye out on Aragon, chopping up Portugal, truce expires, fight them again, integrate vassals, integrate a province, improve relations with vassals, got a ton of diplomats as Castile, working along the mission tree, you know, trying to get the cannons, trying to get another cabinet slot. At this point, we have a couple of institutions, so we got more cabinet slots. We can do more things. We're centralizing. We're increasing control. At that point, Navarra finds itself with stupid allies. They're all small and weak, right? So I go in for Navarra. I take only the stuff that they have in the region of Iberia. You guys know me and my OCD. I leave them alive on like 1 or 2 locations that they have, which are technically in France. So Navarra eaten up, and I think with Navarra, Navarra is only 1 province, and they have like little locations in other provinces. So Navarra, I don't do a vassal there because I got free cabinet guys, so I just start manually integrating that as well. It's not that slow. At this point, probably 50 or, well, let's say 60-ish, maybe 70 years have passed. I've wrapped up, you know, Granada and that little bit of Morocco. I've wrapped up Portugal, and I've wrapped up Navarra up top, so it's just Aragon left. And really, there's not much to say here, boys. This was just, you know, me sort of reinforcing my own theory that you're not gonna be doing the EU4 stuff when playing in Iberia as opposed to EU5, right? So we're getting all of those guys. Everything is super chill, super loyal. And by the way, yes, I know some content creators have said it is super easy to keep all of your vassals loyal. I have had that experience no matter how big of a or small country I've played. However, I really haven't done like a ton of vassals right at the start, right? Because at the start, when you're expanding, you're really only taking, let's say, 1 to 4 provinces, depending on who and where you're fighting, right? So if you integrate 1, you pop 3 subjects. I think the most amount of vassals that I've had at one time is like 4. And yes, it has been easy to keep them a hold, whether you're, you know, your size of your country is the, you know, same as the vassals combined, or whether you're massively bigger than them. So are they too loyal? Maybe, from what other content creators have said, but from my experience, having 2, 3, or 4 vassals around, which they're all only 1 province large, of course they're going to be loyal. So that's how the integration goes at the start. Obviously, you know, maybe sometimes you don't always want to integrate them, because if you go down the Diplo route, for example, for the extra tree in the Second Age, or if you focus more on certain aspects in Renaissance banking or modern armies, you do have the ability to get, you know, to vassal max and get a lot of money from these guys. So sometimes, I didn't test this actually, maybe I should, it might be more advantageous to leave the vassal there and just keep him around until way later. For example, as Castile, I don't know, it might be better to just release Granada as a vassal. They're going to give you a ton of money and stuff like that, and it might bring you in more money as opposed to you owning those provinces yourself. But like I said, for this playthrough, I just wanted to own all of Iberia for myself. After that, Aragon was still in dismay. You know, they ended the Civil War and stuff like that, but they were weak. They had no powerful allies. I think only a couple of small guys somewhere. And then I just kept pounding Aragon like I did Portugal. I did all of these guys one by one. So I did Granada, then Portugal, then Navarra, and now I'm pounding Aragon. And at the same time, you know, we're just working on buildings and stuff like that, working down our tech trees, releasing vassals, integrating, and converting more to Castilian culture, because of course there is something called culture's capacity as well for your accepted cultures. So you can only accept so much. So you decide to, you know, I convert a Basque or Galician or the one Leon has more to Castilian, so it frees up more, so I can then accept, you know, Aragonese or whatever it is. I don't think it's Aragonese, is it? It's like Aragonese and Catalan, for example, since they're bigger. So those are some of the things you're doing. So there we go. A little shorter explanation on Castile than I did for Serbia, but it's mostly because I kept doing the same things over and over again, and that's mostly what I wanted to explain, is the feel that I have for playing in Iberia in EU5 as opposed to playing in Iberia in EU4. And, you know, to unite all of Iberia, man, I wasn't even that fast. You can probably do it. You can definitely do it way faster. It took me 100-ish years. Let's say 90 to 110, something like that. But yeah, that was my playthrough as Castile. The main reason I was mentioning this is because of my reasoning on the difference between playing in Iberia and EU4 versus EU5. Let me know if you agree on that. Will you be playing it like that, or will you be waiting to see if you can integrate Aragon into your junior partner and then full annex them to form Spain? Also, I did form Spain. You need to own... I formed Spain when I was almost done annexing Aragon. Alright, and let's finally talk about Milan. Like I said, the main reason I chose Milan was because I wanted to experience how it is to play in the richest and most developed and fastest technologically growing region in the world in the first 100 years, and also because Italy also has a very cool situation going on, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, which are basically the guys fighting each other, whether the North Italian guys stay in the HRE or they leave. Obviously, this is kind of present in EU4 as well, although it's very simplified, but the situation over here is very good, and I do enjoy it quite a lot. So when looking to play in Italy, man, for me, there was 3 primary choices. It was either Milan, Florence, or Naples, which are my 3 favorite Italian nations in EU4 as well. Naples, I was like, okay, they got half of Italy, and the south, you guys know, is generally poorer than the north, and also I didn't want to deal with the whole union stuff that I dealt with Hungary. Then it was Florence, and I have played Florence a couple of times, but they are a more difficult start in EU5. Apparently, the Florentine guys haven't invented food yet in EU5, so it's actually, they do got a couple of struggles, and expansion in Tuscany is generally slightly harder than it is in northern Italy, at least from my experience. So I was like, okay, let's give Milan a shot, because Milan is a very interesting nation. It starts off as the Signoria of Milan, and it's only a county at the start of the game, and obviously it can't become anything more because Milan is in the HRE. It's about 80% Lombard, and you have an easy time accepting any other cultures because usually there's a bunch of nations over in Italy. So even if you eat up a bunch of Emilian guys, there will be other guys that are still there that you can improve with, and you'll be able to accept Emilian culture and stuff like that. So it's easy to get a handle on the cultures, and Italy is almost 100% Catholic as well, and it will be for a very long time. So you don't even gotta think about religions when playing in Italy. But yeah, Milan, man, starts off with the Viscontis in power. The unique country bonuses are 15. So less than Serbia and Castile, the least I've mentioned so far. In the first stage, there is, a +1 diplo capacity, and actually there's a lot of diplomatic stuff going on for the Italian nations in Milan, which is really good because diplomacy is going to be super powerful in this region, once again for vassals and for alliances and stuff like that. Then you also have +10% infantry power right off the bat as well, so your armies are decently powerful as well. Then in the next stage, we have a +10% skill of new artists. Now, artists and those things actually, and what you call it, works, I guess, works of art are something that I didn't mention as Serbia and Castile too much because I wanted to save it for this one. It's so good. They're awesome things, man. They happen via like random events or event chains. The artists are characters as well that you can get into your court and stuff like that, I think. And they create works of art depending on what they are or where they are. They give you various bonuses. These artists also construct like not really buildings and not really monuments. For example, I'll get to it later. They built the Visconti Palace, which is, it's technically a building, but it's kind of a work of art and stuff like that, and it gives you very nice bonuses. So art and artists is something that's very important, especially when playing in Italy in the early game. Then we got a plus 0.1, sorry, cultural tradition, which is nice. It's, what you call it, man. Generalist explained it very well. Cultural tradition is like cultural defense, and the other thing is like cultural offense, Then in the third age, you have minus 20% noble powers, which is actually really powerful already for the Age of Discovery, since, you're generally going to be wrestling with your estates in the Age of Absolutism, but bringing down their power, especially when playing in Northern Italy, especially as Milan, where you're going to have pretty much the Viscontis in power all the time, and then the Sforzas come in and stuff like that. It's really good to be able to take power away from the nobles. Then you got some merc maintenance, which is not really relevant, honestly. Max literacy and plus 10% trade advantage in the fourth age is very nice. And then in the fifth age, we got stab investment minus 10% and minus 5% war score cost in the final age. And there are some very cool unique government reforms and estate privileges as Milan as well. You got a +1 estates satisfaction, +1% and +0.02 stab investment, and then you got +5% noble power along with +10% efficiency of our cabinet. So these are government reforms. And then there's another really powerful one, which is the Milanese Cloths Guild. This is a burgher privilege, by the way, for +10% silk and fine cloth output and progress to capital economy, which is really, really good for Italy, especially when producing all of those things. And then there are another very interesting estate privilege for the nobles, which is Visconti city-states. It's actually a bad one. It gives you -5% max control, minus 0.05 monthly legitimacy, and plus 0.05 monthly progress to decentralization, and it also gives the nobles 50% plus 50% power. So this is a bad one, and I'm gonna get into it as well. And there's also a very, very, very cool unique cabinet action only for Milan, which is Pursue Lombard Claims. That's what it's called. You get it via an event. I'll touch on this later. Plus 10% speed of integration and plus 0.02 antagonism change. So really good for early game expansion right here as Milan. So I jumped into Milan, man. Milan fairly rich and fairly powerful at the start of the game for what they are, you know. And they start off in... I'm trying to remember which are the guys that want to leave Italy and which are the guys that want to stay. Either way, most of these Italian guys right at the start, man, they will be a part of one faction or the other, right? Especially in northern Italy and some guys over in Tuscany as well. So you generally, the way the Ghibellines or the Guelphs work is when that situation opens up to you and stuff like that, you know, you'll get a pop-up at the top, and depending on which nations are in which of these, you know, factions, the power, or there's like a progress thingy that increases, right? So the Guelphs are guys that, you know, that want to leave the HRE, and the Ghibellines are the guys that want to stay in the HRE. And obviously the Emperor of the HRE, which is like Bavaria or the Palatinate at the start of the game, wants these guys to stay in, whereas the Pope is kind of like the leader of the other faction, and he wants you to leave. What I recommend when playing in Italy as any of those guys is no matter which faction you're in, I mean, if you're in the other one, you swap to the faction that wants to leave the HRE, or you just leave the faction if you're in the one that wants to stay in the HRE, because obviously, when growing in Italy, man, you're going to be very rich and powerful. You're going to want to upgrade to a duchy. You're going to want to upgrade to a kingdom. Obviously, these things are locked. If you're in the HRE, you can't increase your rank of your country, right? So you do want to end up leaving the HRE. Both of these factions progress based on, like, I think, a percentage of the tax base of the nations that are in that faction, right? So the more richer and powerful and bigger the countries are in a certain faction, the more progress they'll gain, and whichever faction wins out, that's the one that's going to win, right? Obviously. So if the guys that want to stay in the HRE have richer and more powerful countries in it, you guys will end up all staying in the HRE, right? If the guys that if the guys that want to leave are winning, you guys will leave the HRE. And obviously you want to push towards leaving the HRE when playing in Italy. This conflict, this situation, you don't got to wait as long as you wait in EU4, which is like 1461. It usually gets resolved by the 1400s, and they either leave or they stay. Usually they do end up leaving. But going back to Milan a little bit, man, if you want to open up a map of Italy, like I said, you know, at the start, and look at that, Milan starts pretty weak. Obviously, there are a couple of more powerful nations next to it. Verona, for example, is a very powerful one that you're not going to want to deal with immediately at the start of the game. And then you got some smaller guys right here next to you, which are in certain alliances, and smaller guys south of you and in Emilia-Romagna as well. I started off my game by fighting Pavia immediately, which I found with a couple of smaller allies next to it. So I annexed Pavia, and I annexed another small guy just south of it. I don't remember his name. And then, you know, I popped subjects out of that, so we're increasing relations with those guys. At this point, you also have a border with Genoa, so I'm like, do we fight Genoa? And here's another thing I'll mention about Italy and about markets. In the first, you know, I didn't touch on that too much as Castile, but as Serbia, I said, you do want to create your own market, right? Because you're not going to be getting Dubrovnik, not going to be getting Pest, not going to be getting Constantinople, and it's all so far away from you. But in Italy, there's 3 different markets at the start. There's Genoa, there's Venice, and there's Naples, right? Now, when playing as Naples, obviously, you're chilling, right? You got Naples or, you know, whatnot. If you're playing in central Italy, like from the Pope maybe up to Ferrara or something like that, you are going to want to create your own market, right? Because you're in the center. But if you're in northern Italy, on this side, I think the meta would be to conquer Genoa. If you're in northern Italy on that side, the meta would be to conquer Venice instead of creating your own market, right? So that's what I thought at that point. Instead of creating my own market in Milan, let's go for Genoa. So I'm chilling, building up control. It's easy to build up control since you're pretty much so small, right? Everything is pretty close to your capital. So I'm putting out roads, building up marketplaces in preparation for my taking over control of Genoa, right? And I'm doing all of the usual peacetime stuff, building up the economy and whatnot, waiting for the Black Death, investing in stability and stuff like that, checking out how the cultures are, seeing the requirements, how can I increase to a duchy, how can I increase to a kingdom and whatnot. And at that point, I've already conquered Pavia, I've integrated these guys, and now I'm waiting. Actually, no, that was before. Never mind, I'll get back to it. So at this point, I got the 2 subjects. I'm feeling pretty powerful. I look at Genoa. They're not that powerful. They only got 1 or 2 small allies. Boom. I declare on Genoa. And they own a lot of the stuff, which is they own pretty much the entire coast. They are pretty much the same size like they are in EU4, right? Except for some stuff that Byzantium owns. So I go ahead and hit Genoa. I white piece out all of their allies, and I take everything that Genoa has over in the coastline. And at this point, I acquired their capital as well. So now I control Genoa's market center. Another thing you can do, though, if you so wish, is when you're fighting Genoa or Florence, sorry, not Florence, or Venice, or anyone that is the owner of the market center of which it originates, you can actually take that over from them. So for a certain amount of war score when fighting Genoa, you can actually be like, hey, now it's gonna be in Milan. And you can do that if you wish as well. I just chose to take over the province itself. So at this point, you know, I've annexed a couple of small other guys over here in Genoa, and we're looking pretty good. You know, we are dominant in the northwest portion of Italy, right? At that point, we annexed the nation, we popped out in Pavia. But before all of this, we gain an event. And I was talking about this earlier when talking about their unique, privileges. And there's an event where the Viscontis, the guys that are already in charge of Milan at the start, they'll be like, yo, we're kind of strong over here. And that is when the game gives you the option for the privilege, enable Visconti something, right? Which is the negative one that takes away control, that makes you lose legitimacy and stuff like that. And you either do that, or the other option is you lose 50 stability and 20 freaking, Republican tradition, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. I guess we're not going to have control. But that is all part of an event chain, because if you do that, if you grant them that privilege for less control, after a couple of months or something like that, you get another event in the chain, which is basically you can choose whether to flip to a monarchy as Milan. And I think this is very interesting for roleplay style, right? You got these options in EU4 as well. Over here, it's even cooler. And the options are, okay, become a monarchy, leave the Viscontis with their current privilege, which you just gave them, the bad one, or remain a signoria, or republic, and take away the privilege. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a monarchy. I kind of want to do some republic playing. I'm not keeping these guys as privileges because we're just going to tank Republican tradition and have no control. So I just took it away. And we're chilling. And then we get another event to move our capital to Pavia, which is actually really powerful. It also gives us some control and stuff like that. So I move my capital to Pavia instead of Milan. And Italy, of course, is also, sorry for going all over the place here, but another thing about Italy and why it's so rich and powerful at the start of the game, and I'm going to get to that soon, is because there's so many cities and so many towns, and it's so urbanized, and you can build all of these buildings, which are specials only for buildings and towns, and you get so rich, you gain so much control. You can have massive, absolutely massive armies as soon as professional armies spawn, and it's absolutely insane. And speaking of professional armies, another reason I decided to play in Italy is specifically the institutions. Now, at this point, I've told you what I've done as Milan, so I'm just chilling, and at this point, we've entered the next age, and here's the thing. In the second age, which is the age of Renaissance, you have 3 institutions: Renaissance, banking, and professional armies, all super vital to kickstart your campaign. You want all 3 of them. You want a research down all of those trees. Renaissance and banking spawn in Italy. Professional armies always spawns in Paris, but Genoa and Paris are right there. The markets border each other. You got the range. So you're trading with that market as well, and you gain a super fast spread of professional armies along with, you know, an even faster spread of banking and Renaissance. So if you're playing in the rest of the world, forget about these institutions, right? If you're playing outside of Europe, these institutions, you're going to be waiting so long to get them. So that's the bottom tier, I would say. Then the next tier is playing in Europe, but in Eastern Europe. You are going to get these institutions, but you're still going to wait very long. Or actually, no, I should say the next tier is like the Russian guys and the Golden Horde. Those are above not playing in Europe. Then after that, you have playing in Eastern Europe, which is like everything from the orders in Courland down to Greece. I would consider that Eastern Europe, even though some guys are closer. Then the next tier is like Germany, France, Iberia, Britain, and then the top tier in the first 100 years of EU4 is Italy. It spawns 2 institutions. You get them super fast and super cheap. By the way, to embrace an institution, it costs money and stability, depending on how much it's spread. So you can pay a lot if it's spread like 10-20%. Or in Italy, for example, you can wait for it to spread to 80-90%. And since it's so cheap and so fast, that's when you get them. So around the same time, I unlock the Renaissance, I unlock banking, I get professional armies, I start spamming everything over here, and I'm pretty much dominant in, like I said, the northwestern portion of Italy. I fought Parma and Mantua as well, fought Genoa, and another thing I will say is, as you can notice, I've done a lot of wars at this point, because everyone is so small, and everyone you're fighting can be full annexed. I fought Como up north of Milan as well, and I'm using the vassal combination things. If they're small, I take and pop a vassal. If they're bigger, I pop 2 vassals or integrate a province manually with the cabinet members, right? And another thing is that Milan has, once you move your capital to Pavia, that I forgot to mention, once again, sorry for being all over the place, I didn't make notes or anything. Another thing is Milan already starts off with 3 possible government reforms that you can enact at the start. When you move your capital to Pavia, you gain a 4th one. So 4 government reforms is insane. The most I've seen is the Ottomans have 3 once they get the harem government type or whatever it is, the Ottoman government. Everyone else has 2, and then you unlock some. Milan has 4 before anyone else, of course, if you conquer Pavia, before anyone else can get a 3rd. So nice bonuses coming in from there as well. So at this point, we're getting the institutions super fast, along with spamming roads, bridges, marketplaces, all of those things. I've started spamming armories at this point. So our max manpower goes to like 20k. I can do even more, but I'm like, wait, why do even more, right? Building up armies over here, becoming super dominant and stuff like that. We are now, the controller of the Genoa market, so we're making a ton of money from trade as well. By the way, no allies. I'm playing this without allies. And going back to the expansion a little bit, I pretty much own, let me try and compare it to EU4. I guess the Piedmont area, which I guess are provinces in EU4, right? The Piedmont, Lombardy, Liguria, I didn't take Corsica from Genoa, by the way, and a portion of Emilia-Romagna. So I'm already pretty powerful. At this point, I'm number 8 great power in the world, and just owning, an 8th of Italy, right? At that point, I'm the number 8 great power in the world. Due to all of this expansion, and especially after the massive war I did with Genoa, where I pretty much full annexed everything they had on mainland Italy, I get hit with a coalition. So it's like tiny guys left of me, tiny guys right of me, tiny guys south of me, even guys over in Tuscany, guys in southern Germany, and Verona. And Verona is really the one you want to watch out for because they are pretty powerful at the start. So I'm like, okay, coalition. Come in, siege down some minor guys without capitals, fight a battle or 2. I'm up to 30% war score. I give the coalition 200 ducats, they're gone. Okay. Check antagonism, super high still, so I'm chilling. Building up buildings, blah, blah, blah. Truce with the coalition guys expires. Another one forms. Same guys. They declare again. Same thing. Siege a couple of guys, fight a few battles, win, give them 200 ducats to frick off. This happened 6 times. 6 times, all right? This happened 6 times, and I was catching the small guys north of Genoa before they could enter the coalition to annex them, right? So the same guys keep entering the same coalition. They keep fighting me. I keep paying them 200, 300 ducats to frick off, and that's how I get to my expansion. And at this point, I'm like, okay, let's slow down because A is too high. I'm done with all of the minor guys, and I pretty much own the entire, like I said, Piedmont, Liguria, Lombardy, and a portion of Emilia-Romagna. Aside from that, Naples has formed 2 Sicilies. They always do that. And here I'm going to put a pause to talk about the formation of countries a little bit in EU4. This is not something I'm too much of a fan of, and I think this will get easily resolved and easily fixed as the AI gets more powerful, but in EU4, you start off in 1444. By the year 1600, in 90% of the games, you got Britain, you got Spain, you got Russia, you got a powerful Ottomans, powerful Austria. 70% of the time, you also see a Commonwealth, right? 50, no, not 50, 10% of the time, you also see Kalmar Union, you see in Italy maybe too, right? In EU4, in EU5, sorry, I've been playing it for a while now. I've played more than 100 years, a couple of times, 150 years. The only nation that ever forms is the two Sicilies. Naples always does it. You see two Sicilies 10, 15 years into the game. Never seen Britain. France is pretty successful. France does usually end up unifying France, I'll give you that. I've never seen Britain, though. And maybe they do it later, too. I just want to say, maybe they do it later. I haven't played later that much. Maybe they do it later. I haven't seen Britain. I haven't seen Spain, aside from when I formed it. Russia, forget about it. Muscovy, no way. No way the current AI can form Russia. And honestly, boys, Biz is more successful than the Ottomans 70% of the time. So that's just a little bit about the AI, but I know for a fact that the AI is going to get way better. That's all I can say about that. So going back to Milan. At this point, I'm pretty successful, pretty powerful. This sort of turned into a tall Milan campaign for me. I'm building up everything I have since we're so small. Control is crazy everywhere. All accepted cultures, and then I'm still converting more to Lombard because I'm actually gunning for 1 million Lombards in order to be able to pop a kingdom. And at this point, we've played so long that the guys have won and we've left the HRE. So I immediately upgrade to a duchy as Milan, and we flip from the snake flag to the same flag that they have over in EU4, right? The serpent, sorry, the blue serpent flag. And at this point, we're a duchy, we're dominating northwest Italy, making a ton of money. I'm probably making more than and keep in mind, this is with trade automated, right? I don't touch trade at all. This is with trade automated, we're making more than 100 ducats. If I did it trade manually, and if I set up trade route manually, we would probably be making even more, but I wasn't maxing that this campaign. Roads literally to every single location leading out from Pavia, which is our capital. We've got a bunch of cities at this point as well. So we got Pavia, we've got Milan, Genoa, Cremona, Parma. So we got 5 cities as well, 7 or 8 different towns. Everything is rural. So we are like 40% urban at this point, which is really good. We're putting down super powerful buildings, maxing crown power as well. So we're making a ton of money. The more crown power you have, the more money you make. Economy is going brazy, right? I'm building up navies as well. So spamming navies, spamming armies. Got a massive standing army. Forget about levies. I can stack wipe everyone, right? Playing a tall Milan campaign, and it's very, very nice. Like I said, I'm maxing Lombard troops as well. After this, at this point, it's probably been about 25 years since I've been at war, just focusing fully on the economy. My mini goal for this campaign was to, play tall and maybe, go for all of Italy. By the way, I'm still playing this Milan campaign. So we're doing all of that. Some other minor guys in central Italy are consolidating. Mantua got pretty powerful. They got all of Emilia-Romagna that I didn't have. Pope is getting pretty powerful in central Italy, wiping out some of those smaller guys in, what's that, Arezzo? That province or area or location or whatever? It's not. It's Marche Abruzzo, I think it's called in real life. Yeah, like Urbino and those in real life. I don't know what they're called in EU5. So Pope is getting dominant over there. And at this point, another situation is active, the Western Schism, where it's the French Pope or the Pope and stuff like that. And there's lots of awesome, cool events where these guys try to court you. Like the Paris Pope comes in or whatever, and he's like, yo, I'm the best Pope, aren't I? And you're like, yes, you are. You gain a bunch of prestige, you gain a bunch of money and stuff like that. The actual Pope never actually came to me with that, but yeah, French Pope was awesome, so I guess that's who I support. And at this point, we haven't been at war for so long. Our country is so centralized. Everything that we've conquered is now a full core because all of these cultures that are in northern Italy I've accepted. So Lombard, Piedmontese, Ligurian, and Emilia-Romagna culture, I guess it's Emilian. I have all accepted those. So everything we've conquered, everything is full core. Control everywhere is like minimum 80%, right? Minimum 80%. And by flipping around the government guys, you can have it 100 all the time. So we're basically utilizing every single tiny ass location that we have to the max at this point. I'm starting to roleplay as well. I look at the Alpine passages, right? I'm not expanding outside of Italy. Looking those little Alpine passages where the French countries and the HRE countries can walk into Milan. I start putting down forts over there. I start spamming forts. So I'm fortified all around the border with that I share with France and Germany, the regions I'm talking, right? So Milan is maxed right now. Visconti's, by the way, still in power. They still keep getting reelected, but I'm keeping them in check. Republican tradition at 100, like 80 stability, 100 prestige, maxing everything out over here. Actually, no, 100 prestige. So another thing, another diversion. There's a thing that you can unlock. I don't know if it's in Renaissance or banking, but it's called cultural investment or something like that. And what it does, it's so bad, dude. Don't get this tech ever. I forgot what it's called. Sorry, I can't tell you right now. But it unlocks another expense where you can spend money for prestige. The problem is, it's so goddamn expensive that you're not going to spend any money on it, and it's just going to tank your prestige, right? You can already spend on stability, on legitimacy or Republican tradition in this case, and then you unlock the ability to spend on prestige. Do not unlock the ability to spend on prestige. Do not do that. Okay, just a little side note right there. But yeah, like I said, at this point, it's been 25 years since I've been at war. So that just goes to show, man, if I, the biggest warmonger in EU4, the reason I play EU4, if I've gone 25, 30 years without fighting a war, just microing my nation, putting this building down there, you know, just sitting like this for 40 minutes, reading what every single building does, scrolling down the mission tree, not the mission tree, the advances tree, trying to unlock what's good for me. Okay, I kind of want a diplomax here, but I also want an army max, but I also want an admin max. So all of these trees, looking at what to research, when to research, and stuff like that. Just spending so much time microing, you really can do that, and it is really, really fun to play tall, man. Just not automating any part of your nation, choosing what to expand where. Okay, I'm expanding farms, I'm expanding mines, I'm doing this, that building there because of that. Okay, now let's encourage population to over here a little bit. Still at this point, converting guys to Lombards so I can become a kingdom, because I need 1 million Lombardians to become a kingdom. At that point, I'm like, wait, we're only at like 800,000 Lombardians. Ain't done a war in 25-ish years. I opened the culture map mode. I'm like, oh, well, my biggest rival for the entire game, Verona, which has gotten more powerful by this point as well, them too, they own quite a significant portion of Lombardians, right next to me right here. It's time to fight Verona. I've got professional armies, so I think I'm going to roll these guys. Thing is, Verona knows about professional armies as well. And they've got decent allies too. I'm solo at this point, no subjects, no allies, on purpose. I'm not allying anyone this campaign. I'm like, let's go in against Verona. Tough, fulfilling war, very fun. They had 1 million forts. I go over there, siege their fort. They run over here. Massive battle. I'm talking 20k versus 20k at this point, which is huge for tiny countries such as this. And half of that is our professional armies, right? I think I can rule them with just professional armies. I can't. So I pull out the levies again. The levies ain't been around for 50 years at this point for me. Pull out the levies again. Major wars versus Verona. I take out some sections that they had over where Parma is and stuff like that. I take that little portion that they have of Lombards. Massive war won with Verona. Population, boom. Integrate all of that using the cabinet members because, you know, we got that fast thingy going on, the special cabinet thingy from Milan and stuff like that. All goes well. While that's integrating, I'm spamming buildings in there as well. Before it's even integrated, before it's even a core or anything like that, spamming all of the buildings. Building roads out to Pavia, once again to every single location. Putting down the churches and all of the cities. We're putting down the counting house. Maxing crown power. It was fun. It was fun. And then I became the Kingdom of Milan. And I'm number 6 great power in the world. The year is probably 1420, not to lie to you, 1410, 1420, and I'm still in that campaign. Super, super fun. So playing tall, man, it just goes to show, man, if you guys are wondering how I can be the number 6 great power, owning about a sixth of Italy, right? Huge population, very heavily urbanized, right? We're probably 40-50% urban at this point. No problems with trade. We're controlling a market center. Everything is going well for us. Everything is super centralized, max control everywhere that we can. And just because we're so highly concentrated, we are more powerful than most nations in Europe. We're richer, we can build bigger armies, especially with the armory building, which you can put down, I think, and only in cities and towns. So many armory, or actually the other way around. Yeah, you can only build the armory in cities and towns. Because we have so many cities and towns, we gain so much manpower. So we have a bigger army at this point than, you know, probably anyone else. Bigger than Hungary, bigger than Castile, than France, than England, and stuff like that. Just because we've been maxing control everywhere, and we're sucking every little tiny bit out of every single province that we have. So yeah, that's how my Milan campaign is going. If anyone from Paradox is watching this, I think I'm allowed to do this, right? That's why I wasn't showing anything on screen, just speaking about stuff. So yeah, I've been enjoying it quite a lot, man. Like I said, there are a couple of things that I don't like, but even as someone like me that's a massively bigger fan of the arcadiness of these games, as opposed to the realism, you know, arcadiness of EU4, as opposed to the realism that EU5 provides. And there are a couple of annoying things, but it will get sorted out. Listen, boys, if I'm having fun, the biggest warmonger in EU4, not going to war for 30 years on purpose, I think playing tall enjoyers, and especially Victoria 3 enjoyers and economy enjoyers and stuff like that, and even roleplay guys, man, from CK3 coming in, it's not as in-depth, but you got the dynasties, you got these families vying for power. It's Italy, man. Italy's freaking awesome in EU4, dude, and you're gonna feel like you're on top of the world for the first 100 years. I don't know how long it's gonna take to unify Italy, if I'm being honest. You can probably get it done, you know, if you're a skilled conqueror, very quickly, but that's not my goal of this campaign. So, you know, if I do want more of these videos, I'm gonna let you know if I had any progress on my Milan campaign right here. But yeah, those were my 3 campaigns that I thought were worth mentioning. I did say full campaigns at the start because, well, I consider it full when I just wrap it up. I'm like, okay, I did what I wanted to do with these guys. Sure, Serbia I quit because Wallachia declared, and Castile I quit because I just wanted to see if that's the route you go with Castile. But yeah, those were 3 campaigns that I've played in EU5 that I think are worth mentioning. I'm hoping we can share footage with you guys soon. I don't know if that's gonna happen, and I hope we're gonna have EU5 up until release, man. Honestly, we still have it. They haven't said anything about losing access or anything like that, or that they're gonna take it away from us. So I'm glad I'm learning EU5 so I can, you know, share it to you guys when I can. And I'm glad I'm having a lot of fun, and I know you guys will have a lot of fun too, because you know, there's a lot of doomers online, man. Like, this is unfinished. Blah blah blah. They're taking away stuff to sell it to us and DLCs. What's unfinished? I mean, EU4 got finished last year, if you consider it like that. That's when the last DLC dropped. So EU4 was finished 13 years after release. What's finished? What's unfinished? I don't feel like any mechanics are lacking, honestly. I think all the DLCs are just going to be flavor whenever they drop. And the earliest it's probably going to be April or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it, man. I think you guys will too. It takes some getting used to. It is harder than EU4, but it's dope. It's dope. And look, just goes to show, man, Paradox have even converted me to playing without the flat map. And it's a great option, but I've actually started playing with the, you know, regular semi-transparent political map. So if they can do that, I only need them to stop the tilting. That still tilts me. But that's it for me for now. See you next time.